is like a corporation, basically. I think if you're relying on romance, keeping romance alive, I don't get that at all.
Grace, our daughter, calls us management and maintenance.
And also, the other thing that helps hugely is that we still fancy the pants off each other.
Hello and welcome to Separate Bathrooms. We would like to acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, the traditional custodians of this land, and pay our respects to the elders both past and present. I am Ali Daddo.
I am Cameron Daddo, and this is Separate Bathrooms.
Yes.
Well, first of all, how are you doing?
I'm good.
Well, we came in separate cars.
We did to separate bathrooms, separate cars. I know.
So, was everything okay?
Yeah, everything's good, huh?
No sweat?
No sweat.
Relaxed?
Yep.
Okay, good. So am I. I have something interesting for you. I was doing some research with my good pal Dr. Google on the fabulous couple that we have relaxing outside before we terrorise them with questions. According to the Irish Times, these two met and fell in love on the set of Home and Away 25 years ago and have just celebrated 30 years of marriage. What do you make of that? The Irish Times.
The Irish Times. So they fell in love 25 years ago but have been married for 30.
No, yeah.
Wow.
So they
that
got
was
married.
Actually on the newspaper, the Irish Times?
They got married 5 years before they met.
Do you think the Irish Times are taking the piss, or do you think that was actually...
There might be a touch of Irish magic about that.
Yeah, could be.
Home and Away are also amazing at making plot twists and turns.
Oh,
but can they also alter the time and space continuum?
Absolutely. Well, Debra Lawrence and Dennis Coard are our guests today. And they indeed did meet on the set of Home and Away, which has been a juggernaut on Aussie TV for over 30 years.
It all began innocently back in the 80s, 1988 to be exact. Set in fictional Summer Bay, Home and Away revolved around the lives of the Fletcher family, including husband and wife duo Tom and Pippa and their 5 foster children.
Now, offset, Tom and Pippa, also known as Dennis and Debra, found that life was pretty good together.
Just like the theme song?
That's right.
You and me belong together.
They continue to work as actors, they're parents, and they have a whole lot of experience that we want to pick their brains about.
Let's welcome into the bathroom Debra Lawrence and Dennis Coard. Debra and Dennis, welcome to the bathroom. It's so good to see you both. Looking so well too, I might add.
Oh, thank you. You guys are too.
Thank you.
Very well.
Hey, listen, we know how you met, but can you tell us how you met?
I know you've spoken about this so much, but it is such a glorious story. We do want to hear it again.
We have new listeners all the time.
Yeah, okay. Well, I first saw Dennis on screen with the Australian Film Institute screenings of movies where you get to vote every year for the best movie. So you go in and you have your little thing stamped to show that you've seen the 25 movies. I was watching a film called Return Home, which had Ben Mendelsohn and Frankie J. Holden. So I knew them, but there was this guy who was playing the lead role, and I had to wait for the credits at the end to see that it was a man called Dennis Coard. But I had absolutely no idea who he was. I hadn't seen him in the industry anywhere. It turned out because he had come out of drama school very late. I don't remember thinking consciously, I'd like a bit of that. But I do remember his forearms. It was very hot Adelaide.
Yes.
And he had his sleeves rolled up, and I do remember the forearms. And then independently I met him, didn't recognise him from the film, at a New Year's Eve party in the country at a girlfriend's house. Then met him again very briefly at St Kilda Festival and remembered him from the party but not Return Home.
Was it the forearms that you remembered?
Well, no, I remembered the hat from the party, but still at this stage the film's not in my head. And then 6 months later I was cast to replace the beautiful Vanessa Downing, and they were casting Roger Oakley's character. They killed him off because they'd both paid off their real estate and they wanted to leave after 3 years.
We are talking about Home and Away,
Yeah,
aren't we?
Home and Away. So I replaced her as Pippa, and then they went hunting very briefly after Tom's death for a new husband. So auditioned auditioned with every actor in the age group. They do chemistry readings, and then they were getting very close to the time where we had to do location and the actor had to be cast. So they put me in a cab down to Sydney to the casting office and said, look, we've flown this guy up from Melbourne. And I walked in, and there was a guy in a black leather jacket. Didn't remember him from the film. Didn't remember him from the party. Like I didn't know. He was brand new to me, and did the chemistry read, and it was just like, oh, hello,
fireworks.
And then on the way back to the studio, I remembered that it was the guy from Return Home. So I raced up the stairs to the producer, and I said, look, you've got to book him. He's amazing. He said, Deb, don't worry. Casting, they phoned through, and they said the chemistry was, dripping off the walls, if I can be polite. Yeah, so that's how we first met, sort of, over nearly a period of a year. What's your version, Dennis?
Pretty close, except the forearms. I've always only had two, so that was a major glitch in my memory. Yeah.
There's been some amputations since then. Yes.
Because I did after high school, I did 20 years with telecom. And then decided I would go to drama school.
So, wow, developing your forearms, twisting cable.
Yeah, all that time, yes.
You were out there in the field.
That's it, yeah.
Climbing up telegraph poles.
Yes.
Yeah, Outback South Australia.
That's amazing.
So VCA took me on, and I had... So I was a first-year drama student at age 35. So
I love it.
Graduated at 38, and did my first professional job was Return Home. And then my agent said, do you want to try out for this TV thing, this Home and Away, which I'd never watched? I said, well, this is why I left telecom, so let's give it a go. So
yeah, and you had a choice of jobs at the time.
Yeah. Well, I was... I play in Adelaide or I play in Melbourne, and then my agent says, well, here's a big choice now. They want to offer you this role. So
right. And then AT&T were calling on the other side going, we need him in the pole in Western Australia. Get back to where you really belong.
We need a lineman for the, lineman for the country?
Lineman for the county.
County.
Yeah.
There you go.
Glenn Campbell made you famous.
That's right.
So was acting always something that was just lurking in the back of your mind, or was it an epiphany that sort of hit you at the age of 35 and went, I actually do want to do something different?
Yeah, I'd always only one high school play, Pirates of Penzance. No drama course. Always fancied myself as a bit of a raconteur, a bit pub jokes and entertaining people.
Yeah.
But never. My dad was a great... I do a one-man show now, and I realise I'm just doing all my dad's material,
Right.
He passed away about 5 years ago, but every night I do that show, it's like he's there with me and speaking through me. So
Dennis is very, very funny, like wet your pants funny.
No.
Yeah, I'm starting to gather that, actually.
No pressure, Well, we're in the right place if that happens.
Yeah, that's
absolutely.
right.
Absolutely. And no one's listening. It's a sacred zone.
Exactly.
Whatever you say here, it's absolutely confidential.
So Debra's mentioned the forearms. What about for you, Dennis, when you saw Debra? Was there an immediate attraction for you? Did you remember her from those parties, or did that love blossom as you worked with each other?
Well, I just remember in the room that I was the fish out of the water in that audition room. The producer was there and Debra was there, and she was obviously, I hadn't seen any of her work, and as I said, I hadn't watched Home and Away. In fact, when I got the job, I went home that night, switched it on, and thought, "Oh my God, what have I done?" Because after giving up all those years on telecom, finally finding what you wanted to do, but then faced with a 2 to 3 year contract,
right?
And I was Melbourne-based. This was going to be Sydney, but very soon, Debra proved the best friend, confidant and working partner I could have wished for. So it had all the elements of growing into something richer and permanent. So here we are.
And I was actually very rude to him for the first 6 weeks of shooting. clearly because I fancied him.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Was that also
keep
just
him
to like
mean,
make
keep
this?
him keen.
Yeah. Oh, is that right? Treat him mean, keep him keen.
So they say.
Yeah.
I did not do that with you.
No. It's only been for the last 2 months. And I'm very keen, honey.
It's working.
It's working.
It's working. You're on set and you're professional actors, and you're playing roles, and you've got clearly a lot of youngies around you at the time, and you've been acting a while, and you've got another youngie in the business with Dennis beside you, being been pretty much a novice, but having gone through acting training. So was that part of it? Just going, no, I do my job and I go home.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I was very grateful that because he's a very fine actor, but he just had no. I spent a lot of my career in 3-camera setups in television studios, and even though I was trained at NIDA, but came out and straight into TV mostly, and a couple of films, and not a lot of theatre, which we were all trained for. But I ended up in TV, which is fine. I've had a great career, so I'm very familiar with the 3-camera setup and how to pick edit points and when the red light goes on and when to turn your head and when to go to the fridge and use props and stuff. So that was second nature to me. So I was very conscious that I was assisting Dennis to. Because I do I'm quite a didactic person in that I like to teach people and offer advice. And people could say it's a character flaw. I would like to think it's one of my strengths. But yeah, so I was very conscious that I was teaching him because he was, as he said, a fish out of water. But the day I realised I probably was behaving very strangely was that I was nodding my head backwards and forwards, and Dennis would say, what are you doing? I said, I'm just making sure that I'm not standing in your key light in the studio. Like you just check that where the lighting's coming from for angles. And there was a day where I remember distinctly I was in the doorway of the Ross house set. And he was nodding his head backwards and forwards in the doorway. And I said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm just making sure I'm not standing in your key light. And quite loudly, in front of a 20-strong crew and several actors, I said, don't be silly, darling. You're far too short to ever be standing in my key light.
And you still got married.
I thought, can I report this or, what do I do?
I cringe now. I really cringe now. But there must have been a couple of other instances because Dennis rang me and said, look, we've got to work together for 3 years. What's going on? And I didn't know enough in my head to go, I really fancy you, so I think I'm trying to push you away. Anyway, so we resolved it, and then we decided that we rather liked each other. It took a little while, and then we kept it very, very secret. We got married in complete secrecy.
No way.
Oh, yeah, I was going to... When you got married, you bought Dennis an 80K phone book to stand on.
Yeah. Some heels.
No, but how long were you working together before you came clean with your romance?
Well,
and how long? When did the romance begin to blossom?
Well, a lot of the young actors had no idea that we were actually going out together.
It was probably a couple of months because I remember a charity gig that Paula Duncan was running at this huge warehouse near Central Station. And I remember I had been on location up at Kenthurst and rushing in the cab and changing in Central Station toilets to get really eager to get to this party because, lots of celebs were invited. And I realised I wanted to see Dennis. And it was lovely big music and lots of drinks and food and stuff, but a very dark corner. And there may have been some alcohol involved. Yeah. And then we just we kissed a lot.
We danced.
And kissing, and from then we've sort of been pretty inseparable.
But to be brought on to Home and Away, to be someone's love interest, and now have a 31-year-old daughter and a 24-year-old son, I should be still getting paid, really. To take my role so much to heart.
That's right. You are truly the method actor.
Yeah.
You've taken it to the nth degree.
That's it.
Was it you that proposed, Dennis, and how did that go?
My biggest thing was I had 2 boys from a previous lifetime, lovely Stephen and lovely Michael, and I didn't know if I needed to do that again, have more kids, been there, done that, found what I want to do, moved on. So the biggest thing for me was that's what is in Debra's future. Do I want to be part of that? And when I worked out that, I probably won't die, the sky won't fall in, it will be okay.
Yeah, because I was 33 with financial stability suddenly in my actor's life.
Yeah.
So,
which is a rarity.
And I don't know that I would have had kids if I'd still been living the gypsy financially insecure life.
Right.
But because we paid off real estate and various other things, which is the boon of working like that. But also Dennis knew I wanted to have kids. I told him that straight up front. And so, we've told this story to other people. We were doing panto in Leeds, and there was one snowy night where Dennis said, he didn't say, "Will you marry me?" and down on bended knee. I probably would have laughed. Not to be unfair to all the men who do propose on bended knee, and, Cam, if you did that, they're great, good on you. But he just turned to me and he said, "Okay, let's have kids," which is what I wanted to hear.
So that was the big thing for me.
Sure.
And then we got married on the 29th of February, like a month later on a leap year. So we only have a wedding anniversary every 4 years. We've just had our 8th wedding anniversary.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And Dennis said, "I'll have to buy her a present every 4 years."
Yeah.
And my riposte to that was, it's going to take 28 years for his 7-year itch to get here, and by that time he'll be too old to scratch it.
Mic drop.
So the dare is on.
Yeah, that's right.
Bring
it on.
But I remember from Leeds, I rang Debra's mum in Australia to ask her for her daughter's hand in marriage, because her father had already passed away, and lovely Mutti was Debra's only parent, so I asked her permission.
Yeah.
And who was at the wedding? Because you said it was quite secret. Was it very, very small?
Well, what we did was, because we only had a weekend, and fortunately the 29th fell on a Saturday.
Yeah.
So what we did was we got married at 5:20 on the balcony of the house I was living in the southern headland of Avalon Beach, literally overlooking the ocean. It was so beautiful.
Wow.
We'd got up there every morning, or the mornings that Dennis stayed over at my house, and to go on location. So there's all this beautiful dawn over the sea. And so I said, "Oh, look, let's get married at 5:20 in the morning." So we booked a celebrant from up that way, and my very best friend David flew up from Melbourne with my mum, who was quite frail at that time. So David and my mum were the only 2 witnesses. So the 5 of us gathered at 5:20 on the balcony just as dawn was breaking. I was wearing my mum's 1946 wedding dress.
Yes.
And Dennis had a set of tails that had belonged to my dad, because he'd been a ballroom champion person hundreds of years ago. So we got married, really simple ceremony. My friend David is a wonderful photographer, so he took the photographs. Then we had arranged for 30 friends to come to a catered brunch at Avalon, and I changed into a party frock that 2 lovely friends of mine had made. So we had catered brunch. Then we visited my aunt, my dad's sister in West Ryde, on the way to the airport. So David and Mum went back to Melbourne, and then Dennis and I went to Adelaide, where we took Dennis's family and friends out to a restaurant. So they celebrated with us. And then the next morning we flew to Melbourne, and about 50, I come from a very large family, 50 family and friends in Melbourne had a catered brunch there. And then we went back to Sydney, went to an Andrew Strong concert at the Coogee Bay Hotel.
Mustang Sally.
And then arrived, flew
The
back to
Commitment
Sydney.
guy,
Yeah,
right?
exactly,
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
And then arrived home that night, Commitment, Coogee Bay, went to work the next morning, and nobody noticed the wedding rings, like nobody noticed that we were wearing any jewellery. So we were finished at 12, noon. So we walked back to the car park and we said, "Oh, look, we we really should go back. This is silly. So we went back and did this with our hands, waving the rings at them and said, oh, by the way, we got married on the weekend. And all hell broke loose. Judy Nunn went out and bought champagne. The publicity department hauled us up to the studio to say, oh, you're naughty. We've got 2 covers out of this.
I could have lost my job because of you two.
And one of the young actors, gorgeous Matt Stevenson, said, I didn't even know you guys were dating. So that's how we managed to do it. It is possible.
Wow.
But just to save all those people trying to get to a wedding, we just did the 3-state wedding on the weekend and then went back to work on the Monday.
And nobody saw us actually get married, so everyone was in the same boat.
How lovely.
Sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, it's doing something that's a little sort of undercover is always a little fun, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What were those early days of Home and Away like? I mean, you mentioned that you were doing a panto in the UK. That used to happen a lot, didn't it? You guys would finish your shooting and then the cast would just head over to the UK and do pantos.
Yeah. Well, we also did one in Tunbridge Wells too. So there was a bit of they couldn't send too many people. So there was always a bit of a juggle about who went each year.
And who decided who went?
Oh, the producers and the actors, because they have 6 months out.
Yes.
Like you get booked early and then 6 months out. Like I think one of the times for the Leeds one, Pippa was in a coma.
All right.
Pippa had been hit over the head.
You know.
So because I needed 2 weeks to rehearse. And for the Leeds one, Dennis wasn't originally in it, but he came over just as we were opening after rehearsal. And on opening night, one of the guys broke his, pulled apart his Achilles tendon.
Oh, boy.
And so I went down, I said to Dennis in the beautiful little apartment we had up at Headingley, look, I'll ring you with the order for champagne and nibblies because we'll have the cast back for the opening night party too, because our digs were really nice.
And I was thrilled, you know, just to be out
so
shopping for these bunch of actors.
Yeah.
So anyway, I said, look, I'll ring you with a shopping list. And Dennis is not a shopping list person, very good at other stuff. Anyway, so I got to the theatre and they went, oh, Adrian's broken his Achilles tendon. What do we do? And I said, oh, Dennis could probably, and the theatre producer, his eyes lit up because he was going to get 2 Home and Away stars in the show for the price of 1. And Dennis is a British citizen, so he could work there without a visa.
Oh, I see.
And so they paid him equity minimum because that was fine. And I rang Dennis and he went, yes.
Yes, I've got the biscuits.
Yeah, I've got the biscuit. Yeah. And I said, Adrian's broken his Achilles tendon. Would you be able to come down and go on the book for tonight? And Dennis didn't even say, how's Adrian? Oh, that's terrible. He went, I'll be there in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Wow. And he went
True
on.
actor. Well done, mate.
He went on
absolutely.
for about until they recast. And then one of the older guys got nephritis, a kidney illness. So Dennis went on as him. So he did nearly the whole panto.
I wish too hard, obviously, you know.
And your hitmen that got the guy with the Achilles did well, like to get you in the show that way. That worked for you.
That's good.
How did you do it without knowing the So were you allowed to have reading off book?
Yeah, pretty
Okay,
for a
people
few
knew in the
nights.
audience.
But I watched a couple of rehearsals, but I'd do the scene, and wouldn't know where to go. How do I get off? Which way? Because you have to know where to come on the next place. So, but, you know, people forgive
He's a consummate professional.
But also, I think audiences love that too. When if they're aware of what's going on.
For a pantomime.
Or even in a big show. Like back, I did Big River many years ago and played Huckleberry, and we were doing it in Melbourne, and flu ripped through the cast. And so we were down to the 3rd understudy had to go on. And he had to go on, and he went on with the book, and everyone was just pushing him in different directions on stage. And he got the most massive standing ovation at the end because he sung it beautifully.
Yeah.
He just didn't know the words, and he hadn't even rehearsed it, poor guy. 2,000 people.
That sounds terrifying to me.
But you're right, audiences love to be there. Because it's even more alive. And this will never be the same another night, you know.
Right.
So they love it.
And as an audience member, you go, I was there the night that,
Exactly,
this went down.
Yeah. Amazing.
But during that time, and especially in England, because the show was massive, wasn't it, in the UK, were you guys being caught up in the street by people going, oh, home and away, or how was that?
Well, it was when I first went over there. I'd only been on the show for on air for a few weeks in England.
Right.
So it wasn't as much for me. But I remember arriving at customs and you'd get this, oh, you're a long way from home.
Yeah.
And and to get recognised at customs when you're bleary-eyed and, you know.
Yeah.
I remember one night after I'd done my bits and pieces on Pinocchio, I was back to my own devices in winter in Leeds, northern England.
Yes.
So while Debra was working, I might go to a pub, and I went into one club and I saw there were 2 guys over there and 2 women over there. And as I approached the bar, this mountain of a guy with tats everywhere took one look at me, said, oh, it's Michael from Home and Away. So out of this mountain of a man came this, but and to get recognised, and I thought, oh, I've walked into the only gay bar in the north of England, and this guy knows who I am.
Yeah, but
it was,
Yeah, recognised everywhere. Still, I was back in the UK just 2 years ago and still getting recognised on the tube. But yeah, it's a huge thing. And people often we get asked, oh, is it boring to be asked about Pippa or Michael from Home and Away? And as I always say, I paid off all the real estate and gave me my life.
Yeah, right.
To have a platform like that is such a gift. I think it gets lost on a lot of young actors stepping up and having a crack. But it's a great way to, especially in this day and age when it's TikTok and it's 5 seconds or whatever it is of fame, that you actually have a solid platform of work that you're going to the coalface, 5 days a week and having to make stuff work.
That first came with our group because we had Isla Fisher in our house and beautiful Kate Ritchie and Melissa George was on the show and Ryan Quanton. And, the ones who went off to international fame, we like to think they were schooled by us. But then, of course, what happened was once they had become successful overseas, all these young actors in Australia went, oh, I just need to go to Home and Away, and that's a stepping stone to LA.
Right.
And apparently there was a joke in Hollywood. There's 2 drama schools in Australia, NIDA and Home and Away. And so then suddenly the tenor of the show changed because we had these suddenly really handsome, muscled young men and gorgeous young women, whereas back when we were there, they were really interesting, quirky actors because America realised that those kids had so much discipline on the set.
Yes.
There's no method acting, it's crouching in a corner thinking of your dead cat and keeping the crew ticking over. As you just did it and they could work really fast. Back in 1990, soap opera was this poisonous thing, particularly if you were a trained actor. And, I'd had nights at the Australian Academy Award nights where people would sort of steer clear of a conversation with me because I was associated with soap opera. And then suddenly you do something where you win awards and things, and suddenly, your real friends are always going to be your real friends.
Yes.
But the people who sort of walked away from you in the toilets were suddenly all over you like a rash, and you go, yeah, fine, I got the measure of you, I know who you are.
Yeah.
It's about your bankability.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So, and of course, I ate pig's anus on I'm a Celebrity last year, for heaven's sake. Because
Put that on the CV.
And people said...
Rides horses.
People said...
it's got to be top of the page.
Why are you doing it? And,
Why did you do it?
Well, because I'm 67 and I'm fit and everything is entertainment, everything. Not everybody can afford to go to the opera or wants to go. Not everybody can afford theatre. And sometimes people can't afford movie tickets, but they can afford to sit in their lounge rooms and watch free-to-air television. And so it's entertainment, and of course I'm a huge fan of the show anyway, so I find it interesting.
I just would fall apart with the food thing, I have to say.
Yeah.
I think I could climb the waterfall. I'm not afraid of heights, but if you said eat a pig's anus, I'd be, I am so a celebrity getting out of here. And I'm not a celebrity at all, but it's the food. If chicken smells slightly off to me, I'm like, I can't eat it. So just the thought of rat milkshakes.
I agree with you, Ellie. I agree. I wouldn't mind. I do those other challenges. I don't like the idea of being in a pit the size of a coffin with a couple of hundred snakes. Not good with that, but I'd rather do that than other things on the menu.
Is there a lesson about love that your relationship has taught you?
You just wake up every day trusting that you're okay with each other. Like we've been through some pretty crappy stuff. We lost 4 babies in between our 2 kids. And I'm very pragmatic about that. But Dennis's support during that time was essential. We've lost siblings and parents. So there's support through that. And also it's like you're running a business with your kids. Like you just turn up, you cook the dinner and you take them to school. And it's like a corporation basically. And I think if you're relying on romance, keeping romance alive, I don't get that at all.
Just on that point there, Grace, our daughter, calls us management and maintenance.
And that's a bit like who we are, really. Yeah. And it's just
and I always believe, I think about keeping it together. I think it should always be up to the woman to decide where you're going to live, because
interesting.
They should have the right, especially if they're pregnant, to build the nest where they want to build it.
Yeah.
And then you just help facilitate that.
And also the other thing that helps hugely is that we still fancy the pants off each other. So I think if you've got a good intimate life with each other, I think you get all the rest is like we can have some ding-dong down awful arguments, but it can be over in a sentence, like you then potter around your day, because we know that there's that base intimacy that we just share. And we have, for me, how do you feel about this, Dennis? But it's a trust, basically, I guess, trusting that it's all okay.
It's also about weathering the tricky times and knowing that, it's not going to be all rough weather.
And it's not the death of a relationship, like it's never, neither of us ever overstepped the mark enough to, I feel safe. That's all I can say.
Yeah. So we've got such a wide age group that listen to Separate Bathrooms, thankfully. And for the younger couples who are navigating early marriage, early relationship, what would you say to them for the early part of it?
Yeah, well, often, people get attracted because there's either the desire, the breeding thing, which is all of the hormones in the body raging to breathe or have sex, basically.
Yeah.
So that's a whole mind-bending, mind-altering thing when people fall in love with each other. And look, this has been written about forever, but it's about getting through that, they call it limerence, that early sort of attraction where you become mindless. And then I think it's knowledge. I think you need to educate yourself about, from a psychological point of view and from a hormonal point of view, about what happens in the body when you first fall in love with someone. Basically, it's your body responding to somebody else's body, where you feel safe with them, you can't stay away from them, you like yourself or you love yourself when you're with them. So you become addicted to that feeling that how you feel really good being cared for by another human being. And so it means that the moment that their care for you lessens, you feel unsafe and then you're in dangerous territory. But if you just think about the other person, and like Dennis is the most extraordinary father. And a very generous friend. Like he's much more generous to his friends than I would be towards my friends. And I love and admire and respect him hugely. And I think if you've got that, if you know that's what you've got in the beginning, then you can care for each other rather than love each other. Care for each other and care about each other and care about the life that you're building. Yeah, it's like a corporation basically. Just build a corporation.
Partnership. And it really helps if you're good friends as well.
Yeah.
That really helps that, you're good mates in the same business.
Yeah. And if you fight about decorating the bathroom, I think you might be in trouble. Like, you know.
Why did you mention bathrooms?
Well, no,
then?
because I've got
we're in one.
separate bathrooms.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
do you know,
That's why
like,
we have
Yeah.
separate bathrooms. You do
gonna-
yours your
Yeah,
way
yeah.
and I'll do mine
Well,
my
if
way.
If you're going to
That's right.
fight, make it worthwhile.
exactly
That
right.
sounds
So,
really
but there
important.
was a certain piece of artwork, a little sculpture that Dennis had when I first met him, and I said that is going nowhere where I can see it. It was gothic, yeah, really. And I'm a decorator. I like create, little physical visual vignettes around the house, and I made it very clear right from the beginning. I said that's not going, but he was very fond of it, and so what happens is that he relinquished that to me, like he relinquished that as a choice.
And that style advice is from someone who's eaten pig's pieces.
Yeah.
But also, but what Dennis is.
Right.
Dennis
So with
has
a grain of salt, we shall take this.
What Dennis has done for me is that I'm quite a spendthrift. If I see something, I want to buy it, particularly if it's of beauty. And I remember when we were in Leeds, we went up to York, we had a day off, and I saw went to the Liberty shop, and I saw this tapestry bag with a beautiful leather trim, and it was £80 reduced from £500. Bargain.
Well, you're saving money on that.
Yes.
So I picked it up and took it to the counter, and Dennis said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm buying this bag. Look at it. It'll be perfect for scripts. It's a great size, and it's only £80." And he just said, "Oh, I wait till a bag is completely broken apart before I buy anything new." And I just looked at him. I thought, this is the man I'm going to marry. And I picked up the bag and I took it, put it back. So he's the curb, has been for 34 years, the curb on my desire to spend.
Look, if we've got time, I'll just one other quick story about that curbing. We did do a pantomime in Tunbridge Wells. Grace was by this time about three. Debra's sister came with us to look after Grace. Beautiful trip. All of us went to France, went out to a winery,
to Moet and
Chandon, because Dale had worked for Chandon in Australia, in the Yarra Valley. We had a letter for a private tour of the winery.
Amazing.
Private tasting, private tour.
Went up to the Abbey.
We'd had lunch in the French village, authentic French meal.
Epernay.
And this was all for Debra's birthday. I'd hired a car and a driver, everything. Then, before we're nearly out of the winery, it's been a fabulous day, and Debra spots this old bottle of champagne.
Of what is a reserve pink champagne.
Right.
Moet and Chandon.
And what was it worth?
£800, 800 euros.
And,
wow.
And I quietly said that would feed a village in any country of the world for about a year.
This is after I'd taken my credit card out of my wallet.
Oh, you're ready to go.
Yeah, I was ready to go.
Yeah. And this is after I've maxed mine on hiring cars and lunch and,
So, we're a good pair.
So she didn't buy that bottle of champagne.
Yes.
But she's never let me forget about it either.
No, that's not true. That's not true. But I think if people balance themselves out, you're probably going quite well.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and is the statue somewhere in your vicinity? The Gothic statue,
I haven't
Dennis?
seen it for so long now. I've forgotten what it looks like.
Okay.
So,
I promise I didn't put it in the bin.
It's somewhere at Toongabbie Tip.
Yeah.
yeah. It's long
Very
gone.
deep.
Long
Very
gone.
deep.
We do a thing called the 2-minute shower since we're in the bathroom, so keep your answers short.
Yep.
Here we go. A time in your life that you'd like to revisit.
Oh, the early days with both my babies.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Being able to, we've got them back, travelling easier than it is with children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you miss when you're not together?
Oh, well, yeah, yes, the usual.
Forearms?
Let's say forearms.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the euphemism.
I greatly miss meals from one of the best cooks that I know.
Oh, yeah.
What the world needs more of is?
Kindness.
Humour. It's an old saying, I think it goes back to Plato or someone, laughter is a healing force, a mysterious but vital food for the spirit.
Love that.
Thank you for that.
Last question. Describe each other in one word.
Oh, gosh. Attractive.
One word. Amazing.
What a great chat this has been. What a wonderful conversation.
Been lovely chatting with you guys because, you're a benchmark for showbiz marriages as well.
We're a couple of years behind you.
Yeah.
But it's been fantastic, and just your wisdom and generosity, it's been great. So thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure. And we meet socially, we'll ask you a lot of questions too, because we haven't had the chance today.
After a couple of glasses of champagne,
Yeah.
you
That
get your
Moe,
spill.
that secret Moe that you secretly bought.
That €800 bottle.
Like, I know them now. I mean, it's like they were old buddies, and we were just sitting at a table at the, I don't know, some awards ceremony going, oh, I love your work, haven't met you.
It's always so. It was like when we had Heather Mitchell and her husband
Martin.
in, Martin.
Yeah.
It's a very similar feel. Like you can the fullness of their knowledge comes across so beautifully, and that's what I loved. Like you could just keep asking them questions, and they had so much to share and so much to say and so many stories to tell. That was really, really evident. So lovely to talk with them.
And that advice too at the end, just like if you get into a Barney barn door, watch what you say. I mean, we didn't say you can't unsay a cruel word, but watch what you say and know that it's not the end, Just know that you're going to give yourself some space. That lovely advice that only comes when you've been through it a few times.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's great.
Wonderful.
Hope you got something out of that wherever you're listening to Separate Bathrooms.
Yeah, and if you're home and away fans, it's a good throwback for you. So,
lot of stuff.
All right. Well, thanks so much for listening, everyone.
Bye for now.